All right. It's 10:02, so I'll go ahead and get started. I just wanted to share some kind of introductory things just to get everyone used to where some resources are in the existing Canvas site. Oh, lose my window. There we go. Okay, so Kat chose right now to jump up here. So if you weren't aware, if you haven't seen this yet, there is a Canvas course specifically for faculty resources about Canvas and about other things that don't have to do with Canvas, so other tools. And if anyone hasn't been able to navigate to Canvas yet, you go to canvas.vcu.edu, click on this image, Canvas login, and then it'll ask you for your EID and password. And you'll get a dashboard kind of like this, hopefully with fewer courses than this. You can adjust this view to remove the courses that you see, so you can manage those pretty easily. So once you click on your courses tab, go to all courses. Those with the stars next to them are the ones that'll appear on your dashboard. So if there's a course that maybe you're involved with, but you don't need to see on your dashboard every day, you can manage that here, just as an aside, so I get that question a lot. So when you're in this faculty resources course, which Laura and I are working on updating and kind of revamping and making some hopefully helpful instructional videos and things like that to accompany this and make this more navigatable or easily navigated. So right now you can click here to find kind of a question and answers approach to this. And there's resources specifically about Canvas. So if you are not familiar with Canvas and have not used Canvas before, I'd recommend starting with the I'm interested in learning more, so I'm not familiar. And it'll direct you down to this module where it'll just have some, if you're used to using Blackboard, what terms might be different in Canvas. There's a self-paced course option. I have gotten some good feedback about that course. I liked it myself, and it allows you to kind of go in a modular way to explore like assignments or quizzes or different parts of Canvas. There's also information about importing your Blackboard course to Canvas. So I have gotten questions about this as well. For the most part, it seems like people have not chosen this option, and I would personally recommend not choosing this option unless you really think thoughtfully about what you do want from your Blackboard course, just because the layout of Blackboard and Canvas is very different. So Blackboard uses nested folders. That does not translate very well into Canvas modules and things like that. So it may be a lot more work than it's worth to try and bring over your Blackboard course. So I would think about what are the pieces of my Blackboard course that I want to retain. And then there's a really helpful guide here about migration and things to consider before you start and what will or won't come over from Blackboard. There's also a more specific, how do I start building my Canvas course? So hopefully helpful when you're getting in there and starting to build. And there's also a discussion board that was recently created. So there are 4 open discussion boards. You can subscribe to these if you want to get kind of a digest or a weekly digest of questions that people have had and how others have responded. So it's really just meant to be an open resource for any questions that you have. I'll look at it every so often. Other faculty are also in here that can hopefully answer those questions. So I'm hoping that can be a helpful resource. All right, so that's all that I had. I'll go ahead and stop sharing. So now we have 2 examples, and I think these will be really helpful from Lauren and Abby about the ways their experience with Canvas so far, how they've used it, and some applicable examples that hopefully you can take from and apply to your own course as you're thinking about how you can build this in Canvas. Oh, question?
Yes. So it looks like we can't take what we have and throw it into Canvas. So it seems like we would be building it from scratch. Is there any templates that people have used that that work really, really well. Like one of the things in Blackboard was how you would set up your class that the students will be able to find things really easy. Should we have some kind of standardized template so students will be able to find it's consistent across courses if we want to allow students to find things exactly whenever they need it?
I think that's a great question. And there was a VCU template that was released, and a couple of faculty members did use that template. We're working on a more School of Pharmacy specific template for that reason, getting feedback from people who have already built their courses. Laura and I have been looking through like what are the existing designs, and then getting feedback from students about what they liked about particular designs or what they think worked well to navigate, to try and create something that's more consistent. Danny's also been putting together some Canvas headers that are specific to the School of Pharmacy, so we can have similar looking courses, but not everything that looks exactly the same, and something that looks more School of Pharmacy oriented. And I just saw, sorry, does that answer your question? So it's kind of something that's in the works. I think it's definitely something that's important as we move forward to create a consistent looking feel, and so people know where to go for across courses. And there are also other tools out there trying to talk on more of a university level to explore, can we look into this particular tool? There's a tool called City Labs Design Plus that could be really helpful for us to create this kind of consistency, but that may be more of a longer term goal.
So you answered the question, but you didn't solve my problem, because I need to know when that would have that available when I have Lauren Pamalapati set up the whole Canvas course. or my graduate student.
I vote the graduate student.
So working, I wish I had like a date. It's one of those, we're still kind of finalizing all that feedback. I'm hoping that we can do that sooner rather than later. But we can also work on it on more of a one-on-one basis if there are things you're thinking about. And as far as general best practice organization, there are a couple of resources about modules and pages and things like that. And Lauren, I don't know if you had an example.
I was going to say your graduate student who sets up your whole Canvas for you. If they want to look at other people's Canvases, most of us are willing to give them access to ours, and so that they can see what they think. That was probably one of the most helpful things for me as I have like limped along through this whole thing, was seeing what other people had put together and trying to emulate them and see what worked or didn't work and what I wanted to steal. The difficult thing is that it all depends on how your course is being run. And obviously lab is different than some others, but some of the more synchronous, those are going to be a little bit different, but anything that people want to look up, to see if they want to base off of, for sure. It's neat to see other people's work that they've already done.
Is Abby's class the one we're going to look at? Is yours the IPEC class?
Yes.
Is that more synchronous based?
No, but I use extensively teams and sections, so I'll show you that piece. That's what I'm planning on showing today.
Okay, awesome. I have one last question before we get started. Sorry, maybe this will come up. But for CPD, people keep emailing what they think are their groups, and then it goes to like everybody. Is that just like a setting that wasn't chosen when the person sent the email? Because I know like in Blackboard, you could say like, send this group, but I've gotten multiple emails. It's like, hey, group 9. And I'm like, but for group 9, like, I don't want my students to think group 9 is their student. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's possible. There are a couple things that happen. I think Abby and I were looking at a case where this happened, where she was getting notifications from people who were messaging their own groups. And it was actually, it goes back to those Canvas notifications where whenever a group posts on their like group wall, because they get their own little group area to discuss. So they actually are talking to their own group. It's just you get notified every time they talk to their own group. So you can turn that off if that's what they're doing. If they really are sending a message in Canvas to everyone, that's also, that could just be a manual error that they're sending it to everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, just said typically it's when they're submitting announcements to each other instead of messages.
Interesting. Thank you.
Rachel also had a question. So along those lines, are the P2s getting any training for using Canvas that they're required to complete, or will we have to teach them as they go into the spring? Coming into this semester, I also put together some student pages, kind of similar to the faculty resources, but very pared down, with some resources about using Canvas and using Blackboard. Nothing was required. There's also a course that is in the Canvas Commons, so that someone put out there for everyone to use, called Passport to Canvas, which I'm thinking about recommending to students, which is kind of a self-paced course. That's something that you can also embed as like a link in your course to here, like this will auto enroll you in Passport to Canvas, and you can go through step by step and get some Canvas training. So that's what I'm thinking about for P2s, is building that into that existing Canvas course. They may not have really been referencing it this semester because they aren't using Canvas, but just making them aware that that is available. And if they have any other questions, feel free to send them to us and we can refer them to like Passport to Canvas or other university resources.
Yeah, I think we should definitely push for them over the holidays, that they need to look at that before they get to Rachel and everybody else in the P2 year. Versus like, I would hate for her, like the whole first week, just trying to get them to figure out where things are because they're not used to it. So I think we really, really, really got to push that. So.
Yeah, they're not, I mean, they're not going to look at it. I get, unless you require them to, they're not going to. And I don't think it's you, Katie, that should require them to. I think it's the dean's office that needs, like, I'm very surprised that the dean's office hasn't thought about doing something like that. Because I know for sure first day, they're going to be like, well, where do I find this? And where do I find that? And even if I try to be, put it in the course, I myself am doing this for the first time. So I'm probably not, I don't know about the best instructions for them. So, oh gosh.
I'm worried about how quickly renal moves too. So I don't know if it's something, Kate, that maybe like you and the dean's office can work on like self-assessments for them. Like, hey, you have to pass this module by the Friday before the class starts. That's just go over some of the like more important things, or like if there's an interactive thing that like is like, I don't know, like when you do Cerner training, for instance, like you have to click on certain things, and then if you get it wrong, something pops up and tells you like this was wrong. That seems really intense. But even if it's just like a Blackboard version quiz, because I worry, like at least in the longitudinal, like for the P2s, this is gonna be the first time they've had Canvas in a very truncated section. It's like even the P1s, when they started on Canvas, some of them already had it, or everything's over an extended period of time. Whereas renal, if they fall behind by 3 days, they're like, it's as if you're falling behind the entire semester.
The Passport to Canvas course does have a modular, I'd have to look and see if it did use a badging function, but you can see, what modules students have completed or gone through, to see, how familiar are they, or did they complete this requirement? So that's definitely something that I would be, I think that's the larger conversation then about, obviously I can't require P2 students to do anything. So I think all of your concerns are the concerns that I also had starting out this semester with Canvas, using Zoom, using Kaltura, using all of these things for all students as well, which is why I was hoping that this kind of Canvas course repository would at least be a resource to them. So yeah, getting more feedback from them on that. And because courses will become available for the spring, January 5th is the earliest date, I believe. So I think we would hopefully want them to become familiar earlier than that. So having this ongoing course that they're already enrolled in be kind of the housed, this is where you go for resources, it's probably the best approach.
I found within Canvas Commons, there's a module that's already built out called Getting Started with Canvas that is specific for the student's perspective, and it goes through like Canvas Quick Start, how to set up your profile and notifications, keeping track of your assignments, how to submit assignments, check your grades, submit peer reviews, as well as technology tools. That one was already built, so I just had to like slide it into as one of my modules, and I put it at the very bottom. And then you can go in and adjust. You can edit every like page within that, and then they had like certain things like that's like do this, and I deleted those out because I was like, I don't really care. But when students email me and they're like, I can't figure out how to see my score, or I can't figure out how to see my feedback, I was just like, go check the Getting Started with Canvas module. It's all in there. And so it was really helpful at the beginning of the semester because I just kind of avoided those questions. I was like, figure it out on your own. I've already given you the resources.
Yeah, I saw Abby's comment in the chat that she also used that for IPEC as well, to be a part of her welcome module to kind of eliminate all of those questions. And she got less than 15 emails for a 520 person course because of that. So I think that's a great, so it kind of goes back to that template question and or kind of the best practice. It appears that it's most helpful to also build that into your course to some extent, what you expect them to know about Canvas. And like April mentioned, you can take out parts that maybe aren't as relevant. If you don't use discussion boards, then maybe they don't need to refer to that for your course, et cetera. Awesome. Well, for the sake of time, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren so she can show us what she's been able to do with her Canvas course and with Canvas discussion boards.
All right, so I'm going to show my screen. So when we were talking to Katie about what we wanted to share of what we've done, and I'm just going to go right into it since for the effort of time, and I also because I want to see what Abby's doing because I'm excited about the groups. So can you all see my Canvas screen and everything like this? Great. All right, so this is a picture from that Danny had taken. He'd given us these for our backgrounds, but this is our skills lab. And so it worked out really well and makes it really inviting. This is kind of the nice things about Canvas. There's lots of things that I've learned, especially working with P1s in a very hybrid course, but I'm going to focus it as best I can on discussions. And so there's two ways that I've used discussion boards. And one was really because my P1s sent me one day, I had 200 emails in one day. And so some of those I've never heard from students, some email me 5 times a day. And so I needed a solution. And at some point I just gave up and didn't even look at my email and was like, I can't do this. So it was birthed out of necessity. And so we have times they could meet with us because a lot of the course is asynchronous where we already had this as part of it, but I was still getting a lot of emails. So we had like a 2 to 3 on Tuesday or 3 to 4 on Tuesdays, open office hours, but they weren't coming to it. And instead they were just emailing me. Well, like 5 were, but the majority weren't coming. And so what we did is we converted it to, let me just grab one of these, that they could give me all their questions. And if they asked me a question via email, I wasn't going to respond to it. They need to put it in the discussion board. And so everyone could see it. So we could decrease the repeating offenses. So you can see, and then I have our academic resident, Kayla's, this is one of her duties is to really look through these and answer them for me, which is great if you have TAs. Just tell them at the end of every day, just look at it. If there's questions you can't answer, let me know. But it decreased my email from the numbers I was getting down to like probably about 15 from the students every other day, which is pretty good for P1s. And so you can see what I also did is we hosted office hours and I would post that video afterwards for them if they wanted to see that there. So they see everything. If they want us at any point, they have it. It's been really nice. And then the other question is, well, what do you do for those people who are still emailing you? I actually put their emails in the discussion and I edit them slightly, not a huge amount, but I edit them slightly for, if whatever they're sending me is 15 paragraphs, I can take it down to like 3, but it really calms it down. I think I have one down here. If not, then I just put, but you can see all of these were emails, but I just put them in there and we'll bullet point and add it. Now this was one way, just, No, that was hers. But you can see, and then we add the discussion boards. That way the students feel like if they can't meet at that 3 to 4 open office hours, they can watch the video, really decrease my emails. And then Teresa Salgado, she started to do it for her course with first years, and it really, and she let me know later that it really decreases emails. So what I like about it too is it increases accessibility for students, because we always have an issue where those who can't stay those 5 minutes after class have to run off. They don't get those same last minute 5-minute questions that you would have in hallways with individuals who are on campus, all these things. So to me, it does a really benefit there. Now it can get cooler though. And so some things I'm doing with the discussions now, that was just like your base level, decrease your emails. The other thing I'm starting to do, let me see if I can find the capsules, is it grades discussion. It grades, it'll grade your materials for a discussion if you mark it as an assignment for them. So we started to do this for, let me find it here, as an optional pre-lab assignment for them, because of one, I need to figure out how to work it. But all of their, every time they submit here, then it goes in my grade book and it'll give them the 100% for doing it. And what this activity was, is they were making capsules. They had to make capsules, but if they showed us a picture, which I have a better way to do this now because they weren't as tech savvy to embed their pictures, they could show me their capsules and then they get an extra, they get the points for just that. What I'm using for coming up is we have a, as you're thinking about designing your course for the spring, are there areas where really good discussion in class could become something like a discussion board, and then it automatically grades, which I think Blackboard may have had that, but I never figured it out. But here's one that we're gonna do week 11, where here's an error report. This is from 2019. The students report their own errors. And so 2020 group will be reporting their errors. But here is the grid from our students of why they made prescription filling errors based on their grades. And then to get credit for this, they have to answer these questions. And then what's nice is they'll all fill in here and then it'll give them a grade automatically. Now you can also get really fancy with this, which I haven't done, where you grade them based on their comment on someone else's. So you can do multiple layers and it's all automatic. I've just been adding one layer at a time. So right now I did questions that were one dimensional. So we think of teaching as them talking back and forth to me or me just talking to them. We started with just me talking to them by posting those videos. Then we added them talking to me by adding in the questions. And then my next step is them talking to each other through these discussion boards, but that'll probably be in the spring. That was a lot of information in a short time period. I can back up and just show you all how to do them, but they're incredibly user-friendly. I think the hardest part when you're making a discussion, maybe some of these embedding tools, which are really, make it really beautiful, but they're not that hard. It just depends on what software you're using and how you embed them. But that'd be something that, not to put Katie as available, but I'm sure Katie could show you and then you know forever, because if I can do it, anyone can do it. But yeah. And then here you can kind of see allow liking, graded, not, and if you hit graded, this is where it gets into like really more require peer reviews. And that's how you would go into these different layers. And for me with Canvas, and Lauren P said it really well, you're like, I'm just afraid to touch it. I was frozen before I started. There's fight or flight or frozen. And so I was just frozen beforehand before I started to mess with it. I was like, I don't want to mess up anything, but I'll say it's really user-friendly in the sense that you just click something and if it's wrong, click it elsewhere. Until students actually start messing with it, then it's fine. Once they start doing things to it, some of the quizzes freeze up on me and a couple of things like that. But if they haven't touched it, you really can't click anything wrong. So just click around and make some errors and you'll figure it out.
Can we just see your modules? Because you were saying like, oh, you just click through, and I'm just more like, I know we have our faculty one, but I want to see it like in a class perspective of like what it looks like from like what I envision classes.
So this one's a little bit different because of my course. So here's my, so P1s, remember, and the course is complex. So I've always recorded all of my like that syllabus intro time because they're not listening to me the first day and I have to repeat it 1,000 times. So this is all their like all their exams and explaining the whole thing. But then when you get into each week, you can see like I have a conference, then they go into their information. I have a pre-lab quiz that I have them do before their lab materials to kind of do like a guided reading. And then they have their activity, and then they have their, like, how did you do at the end? And then we have their keep, start, stop. I also did what April did too, and I'll walk you through it in 1 second. And I put the getting started with Canvas at the end. So when I get those emails, I'm just like, refer to getting started with Canvas. And I just make them go problem solve. But to show you, like, if they're in here, now, no judgment, this is week 1. I had not figured out what I was doing yet. So this is where they watch their video, embedded, pretty fun. And then you see this next here, they just keep clicking next, and it tells them what they're doing. I have prior to lab, how they're doing everything. And then I walk to the next one. And then I have documents posted, so they're here. But when students are like, well, I didn't know there was a lab manual posted. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know there's a lab manual posted? Just keep hitting next. I'm like, just keep hitting next. So it really is pretty user friendly in the sense that they almost cannot mess up if they just go through the module. And for me, it was based on weeks. I think the question for you all, and then this is one of the things I asked for them to do. That's how I cheat to learn their names and what they want to be called. And then you can see it went to their flip grid. This was that week. But as you keep progressing, here's their quiz. And then if they hit next, it takes them into their quiz. You can see it's really, I guess you have to take it because I'm not in there editing. But you can see everything is done for them. And I really like embedding the videos, but I also, just to let you all know, because I had Ben text me, because Abby taught me this, or I guess we learned it together, and P2 in spring. If you embed the video, always put the link, because something happens on the iPads where that doesn't always link. So I have both of those. I started adding like mini descriptions under them in later weeks, and was like, this is what this video is going to have in it, to try to help them navigate a little bit easier. There's an argument that it's a little too spoon-fed, but to me, if you're doing a lot of asynchronous and they're expected to do things, it's really nice to walk them through every single thing. But yeah, if you line it up how you want them to see it, it's pretty simple. I'll show you one more, which is as I've gotten better. Come on, come on. All right, so this is where it gets a little harder, because I'm just gonna give you the stuff I'm building right now, because hopefully that's the best. So we have like a hybrid week, right? So here I'm telling them learning objectives, asynchronous before the in-person lab, and then the synchronous, and like everything what they need to do. So there's no surprises, because they won't have me telling them they can't ask me in the hallway. And then I have like the activity, and then this is where I stole from Evan, where he had like complete watch to do. I started putting those on there so they kind of understood to like a more granular level, because it's clear to me because I'm creating it, but they may be like, what are all these videos for? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Is this extra? Is this not? So I started putting in the complete and the not. And then same thing, as they click next, it just takes them to the instructions for the activity that they're doing at home, and then they work through it. Takes them to the link of the actual page where they're going to put in their errors that I showed you.
So it sounds like you have a lot of things in here. So are you running into the same issue as Evan, where you got to your capacity?
No, but that may be the number of PETA's pages separate, whereas I put all my videos in one page. What is he getting that's capacity?
I don't know, maybe Katie can speak to this more, but Evan said he ran out of room on his Canvas page and was told he maxed out capacity of what's allowed.
Sorry.
If you click on the Files tab, Lauren,
Yeah. Okay.
and scroll down. Okay, there we go. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom.
I don't know what he's doing. I'm 9%.
It's interesting because you have a greater capacity than Evan. So I wonder why, or if they've started increasing the capacity, because Evan's course had a capacity of 500 megabytes, which is quite a lot smaller.
I wonder, because Evan got help from, I think, the instructional designers to design his course. Do you think that had anything to do with it, Katie? I'm not blaming them, but I'm just wondering if there's a difference.
I wouldn't have thought that would change because I was looking in his file structure with this question in mind, like was there something, pulling the template where there are a lot of big images or something like that? And then that didn't appear to be the case. It just was hitting the 500 megabyte by putting in some PowerPoints with a lot of images or a couple of PDFs, which is pretty common practice. So it's possible that they've been upping the limit. I think that, given some of our limitations with Google sharing, I think it might be, a requirement for us on our campus. So they may be testing that out. I know you can request it from learning systems, but as a general practice, they don't want to increase it for everyone all the time because you have to pay more. So that's kind of interesting. So I'm wondering why the limit's different.
Didn't see that because I need it. This is not what I'm here for, but I do want to tell you all these file system I just figured out. It's very cool. So for like my E's and O's, if I want to give them a bunch of examples and I don't want to have like a million links, I just put all my file and then I can link it to the files and the students can access all the files. An example of that is here. Whereas I don't know for you all for Blackboard, I had to upload each one into a folder. I can just have the whole file there. So you all can see it's a lot prettier. Errors in a, it's all about being pretty. Making it look, oh, come on, buddy. You're on display. Don't mess up. Ugh. Here's admissions. So instead, I just have here's just like the examples from this file that I created. So when the students click it, they can access the whole everything I've loaded up there versus having to do a whole bunch of bullet points, which is nice. But that is that's discussion boards for me. I want to give Abby plenty of time. Any other questions?
I just followed up on Evan's course and it looks like it's also been moved to 2.1 gigabytes. So it seems like they might be doing that across the board, which is good because 500 megabytes is too small.
Yeah.
It looks like there are a couple of comments that I did want to highlight just for people who are able to view the recording later on, asking about, should we be using this instead of the Google Sheets for questions with therapeutics? Lauren said we do use discussion boards in endo since cardio did. And they also used an anonymous comment box on the homepage to submit what's going well or not going well in an anonymous form. A lot of idea sharing, which is cool. April, we also use the Keep, Stop, Start Google form that works as anonymous feedback to coordinators about what they keep, what they like, what they hate, and what's missing. Yeah,
and I'll show you all that really quickly. This is what I do for my Keep, Start, Stop. So April made this for all of our foundations, and then it links to ours and it goes into something. It really helps our students feel like they're being heard, especially in a course like foundations. So because I used to do these live and tell people what people said, and then I got sick of rating videos, they got sick of watching them. I just give them their feedback every single time. So you can see some of the students, they want more practice examples, or they were asking about dispensing time. They wanted more than 25 minutes for one script. And I was like, no. So I write compounds get more time, but you can do one prescription dispensing in 25 minutes, especially with all the material. And then like downloading E's and O's. So we found a different way to do it. And then things that they wanted us to start. And so I like the real time feedback, but this is just to let you all know, I ended up sticking at the bottom so my students could see, like by around week 6, I got sick of making videos and I didn't think they were bothered. I didn't think they could watch them.
This looks cumbersome, Lauren. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, they're P1s and it's foundation. So we have to recognize that what that is versus a regular P2, any other course, or P3, any other course. They have a lot of questions and it's a lot of new things they haven't seen before. So when I get 200 emails, I'm like, no, we can do this. So like it's a lot. But
stop looks like a lot of extra stuff that you're doing even within that. I agree with the discussion boards. I think that's fantastic and a great central way to keep all of that. But I'm just this keep, start, stop, because I think we're asking students for feedback in about 1 million different ways right now, which is giving students a perception that we're constantly looking for their feedback and constantly looking to change what we're already having to change on a daily basis, which is actually something I want us to get away from. But
That's a really good point. Yeah, and I think that's something that's more of like a meta conversation of how accessible and how adaptable do we want to be, and like is appropriate to be for, and what the expectations are. I think for me, what it's helped is so that they're feeling like they're being heard and they're a part of the course, and that and so I like it for my situation. I don't think it's something everyone needs. And I definitely don't think it's something for later, that like outside of foundations or outside of anything else. But for me, we do a lot of new. So I do need that feedback from them as we adjust things. So you think of like, we have a resident in our class or who's teaching with me, and making sure she gets her feedback. But that is a question on a grander scale of how much feedback do we want? But it has, for our purposes, it's helped me a lot, because something as simple as the students didn't want everything due on Thursday. They wanted their in-lab quiz to be due on Friday. I don't care. I'm not going to look at it till Friday anyways. That was such a simple message that I got, and I could make an easy change, and it didn't matter that it was helpful. You know, I'm not asking like huge things. If you noticed, it was like, can we get more time on prescriptions? I'm like, no, you can't have more time. It's very, very, these are questions that they would have already done in class and just talked to me as a side. And so this is a way to address them in real time. It's not doing the grander scale of like, how are you doing with the online learning, which I think is what's happening in larger offices with higher pay grades than mine, like bigger, you know, levels of committees. This is more like very detail oriented, like, hey, can you stop adding an attachment for Tamiflu on the wrong prescription? My bad. Yes, fixed it. So it's more very granular of feedback, so we do better.
I will say from a therapeutics perspective, I mean, we have 7 comments and we're into week 3, but it is the only way that we knew, like we had a new pharmacology lecture, and it was the only way we knew that those were much harder self-assessments. And so we were able to address it, but we just addressed it either as an announcement or in our Q&A sessions or like our in-person. So instead of like, well, I love Lauren's grid, I agree that that would make me feel like all this extra work, especially in therapeutics where it's like moving so quickly. I think as long as you just address it like at the next session, you're like, oh, we got feedback that this was really hard. And so we acknowledge that. We just want you to know the test questions will be easier than that. Or like people are like, I really liked how Dr. Dixon does cases. And so like we've revamped how we're doing things, and they like actual like written cases where there's a whole lecture just going through the cases and talking. And so we've kind of like implemented more of that. But I mean, it's going to be a small amount. We have 7. So people don't use it often, but it is helpful to know.
I think you said it well. It just depends on what you need. We don't have the synchronous like you all do though. And I think that's the big difference between groups. When I did this previous years, I would address it in class and say, hey, I got a lot of responses about this, just to let you know. And wasn't this whole thing. But I don't have a synchronous conference right now. So everything has to be asynchronous. Asynchronous is for the birds, but it's very nice to students as my vein pops out from that decision to go asynchronous for that conference.
Awesome. Well, I hate to interrupt this because we're having a lot of great conversations and bringing up a lot of great questions. But just so Abby has some time to share her groups and sections, I think that's a common question I get, and a question that I've kind of been pursuing at a technology services level about what really are the best practices and what are the things that seem to be working, especially in our environment where our courses are a little bit different from main campus courses. So I'm interested to hear, what Abby has done, and hopefully it's on a much larger scale than our typical 100 or so person course. So I think this could be a pretty cool example. Thanks, Abby.
No problem. Give me 1 second. I have to like find every single window. Okay. So this is IPEC 501. So for anybody that doesn't know, it involves 7 different disciplines from MCV. So there are a total of roughly 520 something children enrolled in this course. So I have 9 faculty that work with me to help assess these students, because it is not possible for me to do it on my own. And the students work in teams. So I had to learn how do teams work in this, because it is slightly different, though not that much, from Blackboard. And then figure out what the heck sections are and how those can help when you're leveraging multiple faculty. Because with Blackboard, we have the ability to create those smart gradebook views. For those of you that are in CPD, that happens where they tag you with your name and you can just click on it in Blackboard and it shows your students. And so I wanted to make sure I had that, because with that many students, I wanted my faculty to be able to quickly access who they work with. So for Canvas, the teams actually live in the People tab. And so you can see here, it defaults to an everyone screen, but you can create what's called group sets or groups. So it does allow you to create multiple. So theoretically, you know, they give examples of like, if you have several group projects where the groups change every time, you could build those out. I only have one, because that's all I needed, and we have 107 teams. Hopefully they will have the ability to CSV upload. So many of you that are in therapeutics, that's probably pretty familiar. Us in Foundations create the teams and give you that Excel file and upload. This is currently being managed by Canvas at the university level, and their turnaround time was awful. So I did these by hand, which was not pleasant, but you know, it works. The nice thing is that it updates in real time. So when you put a person in a team, it takes them out of the unassigned list, so the list gets smaller. But this team creation then creates space for them within groups, and that's where they can message each other. They have their own message board and all that. So I'm not going to go significantly into that. The other piece is sections, which is a little odd. It's not required. So by default, your students are entered into the course as a section. What I did, and you can see here, is I created sections, one for each faculty. So that way the students, when we go to the gradebook and I show you, you can filter out that way. And so I have a total of 9 sections. And they're just labeled as section 1, and then I put the faculty last name so that they could easily find it and go through that way. This was also a manual process. So again, I did this back in August, and so I'm hopeful that over time this will become something that they give faculty level access to. They definitely, I think, are willing to do it at the main IT level, but for someone like me where I was like, I need everything put together, the timeline didn't work. So I just put that together. So again, utilization for us in pharmacy specifically, I think I could see this being used in CPD for assigning students to their mentors. For foundations, I could see us using it for the specific sections so that we could filter and say, okay, section A students, because if you create sections, it lets you email them all together. Same thing with teams. So there's some utilization within the layers there. I think most importantly, or what it, at least for the sections piece in the gradebook, it allows you to filter. So this is my gradebook. Notice that the first piece that pops up is all sections, and then I have the option. And so my faculty, if they want to see their specific students, and like Leanne is in here because she's the best and helps me out, you know, we could click on that and it would just filter down. And then for me, if I'm looking for a specific team, again, it has all 107. And so I can click on one of them and Canvas will auto generate that team. And so these were critical for me, especially the sections. I hated putting them together, but I don't think I'd be able to do my course without it, because not only does it allow you to filter here, but it allows you to filter in SpeedGrader as well, which again is critical when you have other people grading. In terms of team assignments, so I do, this course is primarily built on team activities. It is, I would say, 98% asynchronous, meaning they can complete things at their own pace by the deadline, but they have to often get together to do teams. So how the team assignments work is it's really easy once you've created them, because actually I can do this. In the options, you will have the typical crap, then you'll get down here and there's a box that says this is a group assignment, and then it'll ask you, oh, hey, what group set do you want to use? And so then it becomes that, and it's auto, it auto submits. One person from each team submits and it counts for them. And when you grade it, it's just like Blackboard. When you grade the team submission, the grade filters in. So the team piece, like the assignment, is actually very easy, very similar to Blackboard. I am very weirdly obsessed about being very standard in this course because there's so many students. So the setup and the design of everything from assignment level to modules is identical week to week because I wanted to build consistency so that they don't have to think about it. And I don't do a ton of fancy things. So, Google Drive stuff, there's options, but I kept everything very simple, and they literally just download a Word document and then they upload it as a Word document or PDF because I didn't want to jump in too deep and start messing with that. Longitudinally, I want to do more with the tools and the add-ons, but this year I was like, Jesus, take the wheel. Let's just get through everything. And so I'll show you quickly.
Can I ask a quick question about the team? So Leanne had said something about like how the teams were different in this course than we have another course. And I was confused too, because you had like, you could pull up the teams and then grade just that team. But I thought I could do that in a different Canvas course, but then I'd be going through grading. And I could say like, I only want to see people who are under Pamalapati. But then as I was grading, it would start bringing up other students' assignments. And so I had to keep going back to the grade book and finding my own people. So I didn't know if that was what was different, because I could filter by my name that was assigned to me, but it didn't seem like maybe it was like this where it was like grouped by a team. I don't know what that, maybe I speak with Katie offline, but it seemed like it was done that like there was a team, but then in grading it kept bringing up other people.
So there's no way I shouldn't say that. I am not familiar with a way to assign individual teams to students or to faculty. I think there is a way. You can definitely limit faculty to only see certain sections of students, which I debated with, but then I asked my faculty and they wanted to be able to see everyone. So I'm not really sure, but I can show you at least in the gradebook side, when SpeedGrader launches, the filtering piece, there's kind of two sets. So when it's a team assignment, this drop down appears and you can filter through the options. This is what my faculty do for, they have their assigned teams. When it's individual, they click on this little, oh, no, that's not going to work because this is not an individual. Hold on. When it is individual, they have the option to then filter by section. And this is where then it will truly only show, and it will auto filter through students. So you can see now we have student names, which would be a giant list. But if you hover here, because I've built all the sections, I can go to mine. And as I grade, it's only going to pull these 59 students for me, and it will do it in that order. So I'm not sure what is happening in your instance, Lauren, because the way that I've built it, at least in Leanne can chime up, I've never had it happen. If I'm filtering it with me in my section, that another student shows up.
Not with my discussion board. I will say for the other assignments, like it comes up, like the team assignments, it'll come up like with all the teams, but I know I have the set number of teams, which I always have to go back and remind myself, which set of teams am I doing? So I just mark that down on the piece of paper and then I'm very easily able to just kind of go through team by team and do the grading. But having the sections and the teams has made it so much easier to navigate, especially with a course that has so many people.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would be able to do it otherwise. I really don't.
Yeah. So I think, thinking about our courses, I don't know that sections would be all that useful in something like therapy. because again, you're sort of grading and seeing everyone at the same time, but certainly for lab or in other courses where you need to break out students or people are grading, like CPD, I think it's going to be critical that they assign faculty, like sections to faculty, so that that filter can exist. But again, it's the team assignments, it's not difficult to create it all. It was just a pain putting the teams together, but it worked. Any questions? Try to speed run through that.
Yeah, I can go ahead and tell you that Abby is like a guru with this stuff. It does make it for a massive course that has a lot of assignments. It is very manageable. And the student feedback on this as well has been like fantastic. So that they're like, yeah, I can't even imagine this course being live. I can't imagine doing all these other things. So, but.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for anyone. How can I see what the students see versus what I'm seeing as an instructor?
So there's always a student view option that's on the basically your homepage. So you can click it and it will give you the preview of everything. You can click through, you know, and go in and see what your modules look like, what everything, you know, the grade book. You can go into quizzes, all of that, and it's always available from that kind of homepage.
Okay, so I can only turn it on by going to the home page, but it looks like I can always turn it off at the bottom.
Yeah, the option's always here in the right side on the homepage area.
Cool. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Katie, thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you both, because I mean, we've had a lot of good conversations and questions and ideas related to both of these topics in Canvas. And I think this helps put more of a focus on, the application piece of Canvas. Like, you can go in and learn about discussion boards and groups and sections all day, but you may not come away with this application piece necessarily. So I think these have both been really helpful. So thank you both for sharing, because we couldn't do this without you sharing. So we have a couple more minutes left if anybody else has any questions, or you're thinking about building a Canvas course and you have any questions or ideas, or want to ask what anyone else has done, and just open up those 5 minutes for that, and then we can call it an hour. If everybody's feeling good, we can call it an hour right now. Awesome. Thank you guys for all your questions. Abby just added in the meeting agenda, I put links to Canvas guides for creating sections and teams and FYI. So the meeting agenda was included in the calendar invitation. I'll also, when I go to upload this recording, I'll add it in the description, so you'll be able to refer to it later. Yeah, I think it's a great, we'll have this kind of resource for every session that instructor or the other faculty members have added in things that have been helpful to them in the meeting agenda for asynchronous viewing too.
Katie, will this recording and that information be in the faculty resources for hybrid course?
I'll go ahead and put a section in there. Right now, I'm also adding it to a Kaltura channel. So with the Kaltura channels, there's actually a static link to that channel that you can send out, and I'll make sure to follow up with that link and include it in the faculty resources site. I'll include it on the homepage and also put it in a module. We're still working on reorganizing the whole thing, so I'm trying to think about the best place to put it, but I'll make sure it's there in the course and it's clear that you can access it from there. Cool, thumbs up. All right, everybody's got to run now. So good seeing you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.